Hello to all my friends here at the Cisco Learning Network. Anthony Sequeira here with stormwindlive.com, and in this CLN video we're going to take a look at EIGRP and summarization. We know that summarization is a beautiful thing, and we know that each of our routing protocols is going to behave a bit differently when it comes to the default behaviors and the configurations that are possible with summarization. So in this 20-minute video, we'll be taking a look at EIGRP. EIGRP is going to do something very, very strange. It's going to act classful by default. What do we mean by this? We mean that EIGRP is going to automatically summarize IP addresses at classful boundaries within the network infrastructure. So if this is all of the 10 network and this is all of the 172 networks, it's going to automatically summarize with updates when it does its updating. Automatic summarization is not something that we would ever typically want, and I'll show you why in a few moments. But just suffice it to say, it's not something that we would typically want, and many engineers are surprised that the automatic summarization behavior in EIGRP just continues to go on and on and on and on. Yeah, they're really surprised that, wow, why is it a default still when so many engineers typically turn it off? They turn it off because they want to go into the topology and they want to control exactly where the route summarization takes place. So they want to control it because, by the way, summarization is a great thing, as we can see here on screen, because there's smaller routing tables. You know, most people look at summarization and they immediately go, oh yeah, it's great because there's smaller routing tables. Oh yeah, love it. And then a lot of network engineers forget that it makes for fewer updates. That's really one of the most exciting things about summarization, right? Yeah, that's really one of the most exciting things. You see, if we take this whole big area here in blue and we summarize it to these people over here, when there's some subtle change, like a loss of a route down there in the lower right corner, the summary does not change. So we don't need the details of what's going on in the area of the right propagating over to the left, and summarization handles that. This is something that we like to refer to in this industry as the size of your convergence domain. What is the size of your convergence domain? When subtle, small changes happen, do they trigger all of these recomputations and overhead throughout your network environment? Do you have this really huge convergence domain? Typically, just like with broadcast domains, we want to make these convergence domains as small as possible to improve the efficiency of our routing mechanisms and our overall routing infrastructure. So amazingly, EIGRP is going to summarize these subnets that are classful boundaries by default. And oh my goodness, you can see what a problem this can result in. And this is a classic problem for EIGRP in its default configuration. And the problem is called the discontiguous subnet issue. Do you see over here on the left, we have a 172.16 subnet? And then over on the far right, we have a 172.16 subnet. And do you see that these are divided by class C 192.168 subnets? Yeah, this is our discontiguous subnet problem. And sure enough, the R2 routing table is going to say, I know how to get to 172.16 because of the automatic summarization, and it believes it's R1. R2 says, I know how to get to 172.16, and I believe it's R3. And you can see what R2 is going to do. It is going to send half of the packets in the wrong direction. So this would be a nightmare for efficiency in our operation. And this is one of the reasons why we just say, all right, we're avoiding this possibility altogether. We are going to make sure that we disable the automatic summarization. So let's go in and see this automatic summarization in action. We'll see how we disable this particular behavior. If we jump back to the command line, we go to the R1 device. And on the R1 device, we do show IP route, and we discover, yeah, we're getting a lot of automatic summarization going on. We're getting the network that exists between routers 5 and 6. That's the 56-56-56 network. We are getting it automatically summarized. We look and we see we're getting the 23 network. No, that one is I put in as a /8. But look at this one. This one's down on R6. It's that 6666 loopback IP address we created. It's getting automatically summarized. So we can see we're getting a lot of automatically summarized stuff here on the R1 device. So let's see how we get rid of it. What if I go down to the R6 device, and what if I turn off the automatic summarization? So I'll say X auto will be our symbol for that. We're going to go in and we're going to turn off the automatic summarization. Will that clear things up on R1? Well, let's go ahead and give it a shot. And these are the kinds of questions they would ask you, by the way, in the certification exam environment. If we turn off the automatic summarization on R6, does that clear up the summarization that we see on the R1 device? I think I better make a connection to R6 real quick. Let me do that. Alrighty, we've got our R6 device up, and I'll show it to you in just a second. Here we go. So let's go down to that R6 and say, hey, we need to stop this automatic summarization. We don't want it. Router, EIGRP 100, no auto summary. We end and we copy run star. We want to make sure we save all of our changes. If you're in the exam environment and you configure the simulation properly and don't save it, you fail the simulation. Yikes. So we want to make sure we are saving our configurations frequently. Notice the neighborship resynced when we did the summarization configuration. When we turned off the automatic summarization, there was a hiccup. Notice the neighborship was not torn down by any stretch, but the neighborship did resynchronize and updates were automatically exchanged as a result of this configuration. This tells me that whatever's going on now on R1 is permanent, at least for right now, right? Well, that's an oxymoron. Permanent, at least for right now. That's like jumbo shrimp. What I'm trying to say here is we know there was a resynchronization of the relationship between router 6 and router 5. So now whatever we see on R1 should be legitimate for this configuration. So let's go up to the R1 device. And on the R1 device, if we do our show IP route, we see, oh boy, this did nothing. Oh, wait a minute. What am I saying? There it is. The 666, that evil network, is now listed as a 24-bit mask. Awesome. And what about the 56 network? The 56 network, it's still summarized. Let's figure out what's going on here. All right, when you look at your topology, we realize that the network that R6 owned, the network that it was connected to, the 666 network, it's now no longer summarizing that when it sends it to R5. R5 gets it as an unsummarized and sends it on to R1 as an unsummarized. But the issue we're having here in the routing table of R1 with the 56 network being summarized is the fact that the R5 device owns that one and it's configured for the automatic summarization, so it's summarizing it. Yeesh. Well, we can see why, to really get rid of all summarization in the EIGRP environment, initially, all the automatic summarization, we really do need to go to each device and turn it off. So now I head to R5 and I configure terminal, router EIGRP 100, no auto summary, and we do our copy run star. And let's really double check things now. We go to R1. And before I do a show IP route, let's say we weren't convinced that we're seeing a current copy of the routing table. You can always do this, clear IP route asterisk. And that clears your routing table, forces EIGRP to get new update information, and now we can do our show IP route EIGRP, for example, and we can see that now we know that the 56 network is actually the 565656 network. Very cool. Now, I want to go into this router, by the way, our third EIGRP speaker, and I want to say no auto summary on this router as well. And now we have the automatic summarization turned off throughout our entire topology. But what about manual summarization? Yeah, there are going to be times when we do want summarization to take place for particular prefixes in our environment. As a matter of fact, let's go create a bunch more loopbacks on this R6 device. We'll create many more loopbacks in that 6 network range, and then we'll go ahead and demonstrate how we manually summarize those in a particular configuration. Here we go. Let's go down to R6, and we'll say interface loopback 11, IP address 6.5.5.6, interface loopback 12, IP address 4, And finally, interface loopback 13. We'll do one more. Okay. Now, let's do show run begin router EIGRP. Another way that we can go right to the configuration we're interested in. And that's what I thought. We're not going to advertise those other networks I just created in EIGRP because of the technique we used with the network command. So I will negate that. I'll say no network 6.6.6.6 0.0.0.0, and I'll replace it by just saying, look, if it falls in the classful 6 space, go ahead and advertise it via EIGRP. Okay, if we go up to the R1 device, what do we see? Sure enough, we see all of those networks thanks to the lack of automatic summarization. Let's make things more efficient now. We'll do manual summarization. So we will go to the R6 device and we'll say interface. Yeah, the manual summarization is an interface level command. We're going to go to the interface where we want to configure the manual summarization. And in this case, it's going to be the fast Ethernet interface on R6. And we configure the exact summary that we want advertised there. So I say interface FA 0/0, and I say IP summary address, and I always need context-sensitive help with this command. For some reason, it is a huge mental block that I have when it comes to this particular command. I say IP summary-address question mark. Oh yeah, I got to say EIGRP and the AS number, and then I can go ahead and give the summary address. And then we give the summary mask, and we're good. Notice there is another resync because we just configured manual summarization. That's fine. I do my copy run star. And notice, if we look in the routing table on this local device for EIGRP, we see there is that bit bucket summary that I mentioned. This is this local router saying, look, I'm pretending that there's a 6000 network, but actually there's a 666, 655, 644, etc. So don't send me traffic going for 6000, because I'm going to throw that away. And what's probably happening, if you send me traffic destined for the summary that I've configured, we're probably in a routing loop. Yeah, this is a loop prevention mechanism. Remember, this machine, just think of it this way, this machine doesn't get you actually to 6000. No, it gets you to those specific destinations inside of that. So anything that's truly addressed for the summary itself needs to be tossed. And this is the important null zero route. And this happens for you automatically. Notice I didn't go in and configure this in any way. All I did was the manual summarization, and that important route got created for us. So we did the summarization on the R6 Fast Ethernet 0/0 interface. And now if we go up to the R1 device and we do our show IP route for EIGRP, sure enough, we have a summary now for all of those 6 networks. Here was the routing table before, and here is the routing table after that manipulation that we made to our topology. Pretty cool stuff.